Good morning. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today, the Noongar people, and recognise their leaders, past, present and emerging. Unfortunately, our college principal, Mr Declan Tannum, is unavailable today, and he has asked me to pass on his sincere apologies. My name is Michael Williams, Deputy Principal of Curriculum here at the college. To the Most Reverend Timothy Costello, Archbishop of Perth. To the Most Reverend Donald Sproxton, Auxiliary Bishop of Perth. To Dr Edward Simons, Director of Governance and Administrative Services for Catholic Education Western Australia, here today representing Dr Tim McDonald, the Executive Director. To the staff and students from the 24 schools that are gathered here today from across the Archdiocese of Perth, a warm welcome to Arranmore Catholic College. It is our great pleasure to host you at our school for the Archbishop's Forum for Lifelink Day. I trust that your experience here will be rewarding and you will learn more about the important role the Lifelink social service agencies play in assisting thousands of people throughout our community. It is now my great pleasure to introduce the Most Reverend Donald Sproxton, Auxiliary Bishop of Perth and Chairman of Lifelink, to begin the 2017 Forum. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. How are you all? Good? Good. So the Archbishop and I would sincerely like to thank Arranmore Catholic College for hosting our forum again today, and to thank Mike for his welcome and his address at the beginning. I'm delighted to advise that as well as being filmed this morning, this forum is also being live streamed for the first time ever. So everyone at the school, and especially the few schools unable to attend today, can share in this special event in support of Lifelink Day 2017. I'd like to acknowledge our special guest, Mrs. Diana Altieri, the team leader of Religious Education and Faith Formation Team at Catholic Education Western Australia. And a very special welcome to all of you here, representatives from 28 secondary schools from across the Archdiocese of Perth. We are delighted that you have made the time to join us this morning. So before we begin, I'd like to commence proceedings with prayer. This is a prayer for charity. God of mercy and compassion, we praise you for your goodness. May your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Fill us with the spirit of loving service as we recognise in those we meet the face of Jesus, your Son. Through the generous work of our Lifelink welfare agencies, may burdens be lifted from the shoulders of your people, and may they feel the warmth of your kindness and love. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. So, what is Lifelink? Why was it started? What does it do? And whom do we help? Many of these questions are answered in our Welcome to Lifelink video, which many of you have already seen. But if you haven't, I'd like to share a short edited version of this with you now.
Welcome everybody. Lifelink was established by the Archdiocese of Perth in 1994 as the unifying name under which the many welfare and social service agencies established or supported by the Church would be funded and promoted. A number of our agencies have served people in need within communities throughout Western Australia for more than 30 years and are well known. Organisations such as Centrecare, Identity WA and Centrecare Employment and Training. The Shopfront, Day Dawn and Emmaus community organisations were established more recently to meet emerging needs identified within the community. Each agency or service, funded or supported through Lifelink, represents an essential part of the Church's mission to reach out to those in need and, in doing so, express faith in a direct and tangible manner. As you all know, as Catholics, we believe that it is through service to others that we see and experience the true face of Jesus. Pope Francis expressed this when he said, "It is not only in what we believe and what we say, but in what we do, that we come to fully know and understand the message of love which Jesus brought to the world." Just as Jesus walked with and reached out to the poor, the lonely, the isolated and the abused, we too are called upon to give concrete expression to our faith through our active service to others. Through the wonderful work of our Lifelink agencies, we bear witness to and are a vital part of engaging with people who reach out to us for help. I hope you enjoy this informational video.
Lifelink is not a welfare organisation, it is the fundraising and promotional arm for the many welfare agencies and services established by the Archdiocese of Perth. Lifelink currently provides funding support to the following agencies and organisations established or supported by the Church: Catholic Ministry for people who are deaf or hearing impaired, Catholic Outreach, Centacare Employment and Training, Centacare Incorporated, Juraminda, Day Dawn Advocacy Centre, Emmanuel Centre, Emmaus Community, Identity WA, Samaritan Projects, The Shopfront.
Whilst it may not always be obvious, there are thousands of people who desperately need our help right here in Perth and throughout WA.
Lifelink Catholic Caring Agencies reach out to more than 34,000 Western Australian families and individuals in need each year. By providing services and respite care to individuals, families and children with physical or intellectual disability. By offering safe refuge and assistance for women and children escaping domestic abuse or violence. Providing emergency housing, skills training for the unemployed, food and support for the homeless, and caring homes for people battling mental health conditions.
The Shopfront started in 2001. I went to see Archbishop Hickey about the problem we had with all the homeless people and looking for help. And so he told me, why don't you go and start a Shopfront? So the Shopfront first is a drop-in centre, and they get lovely volunteers who are warm and welcoming to greet them. But it's also a referral. So also then if you're homeless or you're looking for assistance, the Shopfront networks with a wide group of people so that they can provide emergency assistance for people who are in need. Last year, 25,000 people came through Shopfront. People can help by donating to Shopfront financially. Other people may say, look, we'd like to help with blankets or canned drives. So people can help in many ways, and all of it is really, really appreciated. Most recently of someone, a lady that we were able to help who needed some assistance for Christmas presents, and just seeing that family and the joy and the love that they experience by receiving the gifts of Christmas presents. And then her children were so excited when I went to see them. Oh, she's come with gifts. And they asked me, please eat with us, please share with us. Thank you for the love you've shown us. And that to me is repeated again and again to all these people who come to receive a touch of love. I think it's really important to recognise the amazing work that all our parishes do to support Shopfront. Most of our volunteers come directly from the parishes. They give up their time to come and support those who are in need. And without the parishes and the support from our parishes, Shopfront would not be the warm, welcoming and caring place it is.
Emmaus started in 1996 when I was working in a crisis unit. People were coming into the crisis unit and were coming back to the crisis unit constantly. I prayed and asked the Lord to give us a property where we could have long-term independent community living. The benefits of community living are that people in the long term become family. Our mission statement is that every person created by God deserves to love and be loved, to be respected and to be taken seriously. This is what we strive for, especially with people who live with mental health issues. Our basis is the Jesus message. It's simple, yet radical. It's about love. If our community grows, it will be in love. It's not for profit, it's for the love of our brothers and sisters. If Emmaus didn't exist, I guess the people would be living in hostels. The difference between a hostel and Emmaus is a hostel is accommodation. We're here, it's a home, and that's what we're striving for anyway. If I had a message regarding how people should treat people with mental health issues, it's the same as treating someone with diabetes or cancer. So the message would be that we are all connected, we are all brothers and sisters, and love. Love is the message. I can't even tell you how strongly I feel and this community feels about this message. People can support us by supporting LifeLink because we're part of a web of agencies that help our brothers and sisters. And if people feel in their heart, how can I do this? And I want to do something here, support LifeLink because it does go straight to the source, believe me. And it has helped in so many ways here. And other agencies. I'm friends with other agencies and it helps many people.
Each year, LifeLink supported agencies deliver more than $50 million of professional programs, caring services, qualified personnel and resources for the benefit of the Western Australian community.
Thankfully, much of this funding is provided through various state and federal government grants and service contracts. However, to ensure our agencies are appropriately funded, the Church, through LifeLink, provides more than $1.2 million in direct funding each and every year. In addition to the substantial assistance the Church already provides with buildings and properties utilised by these welfare agencies. LifeLink's mission, its purpose, is to raise this required $1.2 million through my annual fundraising appeals and with the enthusiastic support of Catholic schools in this Archdiocese on LifeLink Day.
More information about LifeLink, photos, articles and teaching resources are now available on our new website. Please visit us at www.lifelink.com.au.
Thank you for taking the time to learn more about LifeLink and the work of our social service agencies. It's up to all of us to help make a difference. Let us reach out with generosity, with compassion and with love when someone asks us for help.
So we've heard in this video that LifeLink agencies reach out to help more than 34,000 Western Australians in need each year. Sometimes the message behind that number can get lost. So to put it into some perspective, 34,000 people is the equivalent to the entire populations of Mosman Park, Peppermint Grove, Cottesloe, North Fremantle, Fremantle, South Fremantle and Beaconsfield. So let's talk about LifeLink Day itself. The Archbishop's LifeLink Day initiative for Catholic schools started in 1998. The core objectives of the Archbishop's LifeLink Day for Schools initiative are to promote understanding of the Church's response to people in need within our community, to instill in Catholic students attending our archdiocesan schools a sense of responsibility for those less fortunate, to provide education and information of the work undertaken by the Lifelink social service agencies in helping many thousands of Western Australian families and individuals in need each year, and to encourage a practical demonstration of faith by asking students, teachers and schools to organise a special fundraising event for Lifelink Day, with the proceeds aiding people in real need within the community. Since its inception, Lifelink Day has been warmly embraced by our archdiocesan schools. We are indeed grateful for the enthusiastic support of Catholic Education Western Australia, and especially of all those principals, teachers and students throughout the Archdiocese. Secondary schools have held fetes, free dress days, sports carnivals, walkathons, dances, international food days, and all manner of fun events which have been highly successful fundraising activities. I'm delighted to report that collectively, Catholic primary and secondary schools have raised more than $1.7 million to support Lifelink Day. And every dollar has been directed to the service and care of people in need in the community. This is a remarkable achievement, and you are to be congratulated on your efforts, and I think you should give yourselves a round of applause. Well done. Last year, I'm delighted to say that our primary and secondary schools raised almost $120,000. Thank you very much. The Archbishop and I hope that this year you will once again join together and be as generous as you can to help our brothers and sisters in need. Whilst Lifelink Day is officially launched on Wednesday, the 7th of June this year, your school may undertake its fundraising activity anytime during the school year. To help you to celebrate and share Lifelink Day in your school, we will provide a number of resources. These will be uploaded to our Lifelink website during April. From the Secondary School Resources button on the home page, you will have access to 2 videos of our forum today, a 1-hour video of these presentations, and a 90-minute video of the Q&A session which will follow later this morning. These will be split into 2 by 45-minute sessions. Teachers will be able to access these in class to share with the students. PDF copies of the Lifelink Day poster. The posters have already been delivered to your school. Information on our Lifelink agencies with contact details. Samples of our Lifelink and Lifelink Day logos, should you wish to use them. Photos representing the work of our Lifelink agencies. And again, thank you so much for your time this morning. And sincere thanks for your continuing support of Lifelink Day. I hope you enjoy today's forum, and whatever fundraising event your school may hold this year, I wish you every success. Thank you very much. So it's my pleasure now to introduce and invite Archbishop Timothy Costello to present his key address.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to look out and see so many of you here. I did feel a bit sorry for those who probably got held up in traffic and turned up late, because they're the ones who always have to walk past everybody else and take the front seats that everybody else has left empty. So well done. Thanks for coming. I wanted to begin this morning by saying how pleased I am to be here with you. This address that I give each year to our secondary school students on the occasion of our LifeLink Day launch is really one of the highlights of my year. Many of you would know perhaps that before I became a bishop, I was a teacher and a secondary school teacher in a large Catholic boys' school in Melbourne for a number of years. So I've got a bit of a soft spot for secondary schools and certainly always enjoy being with you. So thanks for coming. When I was appointed as the Archbishop of Perth 5 years ago, I had to choose a motto which would go on my official crest. Like most of your schools, our archdiocese also has a crest. And you can see the archdiocesan crest and my official crest up there on the screen. The archdiocesan crest has the Southern Cross, as you can see, and the Black Swan. And the Southern Cross, of course, represents both Australia and our Christian faith, and the Black Swan represents Western Australia. But as well as the official archdiocesan crest, each Catholic bishop also has his own personal crest, which represents some of the things that he regards as important. And it also usually has a motto that goes underneath, which tries to say in just a few words what the bishop sees as being really at the heart of his ministry as a bishop. So my crest, as you can see on one side, also has the Southern Cross and the Black Swan, because I am the Archbishop of Perth, but it also has on the other side a star, which represents Mary, the mother of Jesus, who's often described as the Star of the Sea. It has a cluster of 3 trees, which actually represent the founder of the religious order to which I belong, St. John Bosco, because the name Bosco, or the word Bosco in Italian, stands for wood, or means wood or forest. And then it has 3 diamonds, because like most Irish families, our family has a crest, and on that crest you'll find 3 diamonds. I don't know what they represent, but anyway, they're there, and to me they remind me of my family origins. The motto underneath is in Latin. I don't know how many of you are studying Latin at school, probably not too many of you, but you might know these 3 words at least: via, veritas, and vita. Via means the way, veritas means the truth, and vita means life. And these, of course, are 3 words that Jesus used on one occasion to describe himself. In choosing them as my motto, I wanted to express my conviction that being a Christian, and most of us are Christians, and most of us within that belong to the Catholic tradition, being a Christian, a Catholic Christian, and certainly being a priest or a bishop doesn't make any sense at all. It has no sort of inner coherence to it unless Jesus is at the heart of everything that we're trying to do and everything that we're trying to be. So I chose that motto to remind myself, first of all, and then everybody else, of the fact that Jesus needs to be at the heart of what we're all on about. Like most of you, I can't say that I live up to this all the time, but I can say that I know that I'm supposed to keep trying if I'm going to be true to myself and true to the person that I think God has created me to be. There is another crest of which I'm rather fond that's going to come up on the screen now. When I was first preparing this address in the week before Easter, I was riding high. Some of you may know, you may have heard on the grapevine, that I'm a Richmond supporter. And for the first time in a long, long time, my team at that stage had won the first 3 games of the season in a row. We were sitting second on the ladder, and in typical Tigerland fashion, we were already making room for the 2017 Premiership Cup in the trophy room at the Punt Road Oval. Not only that, but we had at that stage already beaten the Eagles. I'm never too sure whether I'm happier when we beat the Eagles or when we beat the Dockers, But I do know that Richmond supporters are never happier than when we beat Collingwood. You know, of course, that in Melbourne anyway, there's a phrase about ABC. It's not the beginning of the alphabet, it stands for anyone but Collingwood. So I hope there are no Collingwood supporters here. This week I'm not so happy, of course, but we won't go into that. We'll leave that for another time. Like all teams, Richmond has its heroes. On the Monday after the win over the Eagles, the papers were full of stories about Dustin Martin, Jack Riewoldt, Daniel Rioli, Trent Cotchin, and a whole pile of others. These young men, and so many others found in every AFL team, while none of them probably is perfect as a human being, nevertheless always display great qualities like self-discipline and courage and commitment and loyalty. And without those qualities, none of the undoubted natural talent that they all have would get them very far in the cutthroat world of professional football. You need more than talent. You need other things going for you as well. It's not only football or sport in general which produces great heroes, people to whom we look up, people we admire, people we would like to emulate. Such people are found in every walk of life, including our own church. And this morning I wanted to speak about one such hero whose name would be known to most of you, although you may not know a great deal about this person other than that she is Australia's first saint. I'm talking, of course, about Mary MacKillop, or Mary of the Cross, St. Mary of the Cross, as she's officially known. This morning I don't intend to spend a lot of time retelling her life story to you. You can easily find that on the internet, and if you don't know a great deal about her, I would encourage you to research her life when you get the opportunity. This morning, it's probably enough simply to know that she was born in Melbourne in 1842. She died in Sydney in 1909 at the age of 67, and she's buried in the chapel of the convent that she started in North Sydney, just a short trip over the Harbour Bridge from the city itself. She started work at the age of 14 in a stationery shop in Melbourne. And then she became governess to the children of her aunt and uncle, who lived in a little place called Penola in South Australia. So as a governess, of course, she started teaching these children, and she also started teaching other children who lived nearby. And eventually, and this is where you need to check it on the internet, it's a long and complicated story, but eventually, by teaming up with a local priest who was very concerned about the lack of educational opportunities, especially for families living in the Australian outback, she gathered around her a group of young women who were the first members of what we now know as the Sisters of St. Joseph, or the Josephites. What started as a small group of women dedicated to the care of young people grew into a very large congregation of nuns, of sisters. And there are still many hundreds of these sisters living and working here in Australia and in a number of other countries around the world. As Mary's little group started to grow, she realised that it was up to her to provide them with the leadership they needed if they were going to be able to stay faithful to the difficult work and the challenging lifestyle that they had taken on. So just as AFL footballers have to have discipline and commitment and loyalty and determination, so too did these young women, these young sisters. Mary rose to the challenge, and in doing so, she became not just the first woman to take on the lifestyle herself, but the one who would set the pattern for all the others to follow. A bit like an AFL coach, Mary had to provide inspiration and example and advice. And it's some of that advice, some of Mary's advice, that I wanted to offer you this morning as we launch this year's LifeLink effort. The first piece of advice is a saying of Mary MacKillop's which has become very famous. In fact, if you're ever in Sydney and you get a chance to visit the chapel where she is buried, you will find this piece of advice on large banners which hang in the chapel for all to see. It's a very simple piece of advice. Some of you may have heard me talk about it before. It's also a very challenging piece of advice, and this is it. Never see a need without doing something about it. Never see a need without doing something about it. It seems to me that this might be a perfect description of generosity and selflessness. A person who has these qualities is precisely a person who lives by the same spirit which animated Mary MacKillop, and the same spirit which makes this one of her most important pieces of advice to those young women she gathered around her. Not only is this a highly idealistic goal for someone to try and reach, and it is, but it also represents a very practical, down-to-earth method for living what we might call a heroic life. In our Catholic tradition, one of the reasons why someone gets canonised as a saint is because they are judged to have lived an heroic life. Living this way is living as a hero. But of course, it's not as simple as it sounds. Because it's one thing to suggest to another person that he or she should try and live like this. It's another thing to provide suggestions as to how to actually achieve it day by day. After all, such an approach to life presupposes a number of very important ideas. Firstly, it presumes that a person will have eyes that are open and on the lookout for people in need. Eyes that are open. And I think we know that not everybody has these kinds of eyes, or at least uses these kinds of eyes in their lives. I think we could expand that a little bit further and suggest that a person is likely to succeed in doing what Mary MacKillop suggests only if she or he has ears that are tuned in to all the different ways in which people call out for help. It's not always obvious that people are in need of help or calling out for help. We have to be tuned in. And sometimes we fill our lives with so much other noise and distraction that we're very unlikely to even hear these often well-disguised cries for help. And even more, and this I think takes us to the very centre of LifeLink Day, even more, if we think about it, we quickly realise that unless you have a heart that actually wants to help, unless, in other words, you are already trying to be a generous and selfless person, at least to some extent, it's unlikely that it will even occur to you that you should reach out to help people in need. And then I think if we start to think our way into this a little more deeply, the questions begin to surface. How do people's hearts get reshaped so that they want to help? How do people get to have sensitive ears and wide open eyes so that they actually begin to notice how much people are in desperate need? How easy really is it to do something about helping them? These are important questions. They remind me of a famous story that Jesus once told in one of his parables. You will have heard it before. I'm just going to read it, but it will come back to you, I'm sure. It's known generally as the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen and lived in luxury every day. At his gate, was laid a beggar named Lazarus, covered with sores, and longing to eat what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs came and licked his sores. The time came when the beggar died and the angels carried him to Abraham's side. The rich man also died and was buried. In Hades, where he was in torment, he looked up and saw Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. So he called to him, "Father Abraham, have pity on me, and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, because I am in agony in this fire." But Abraham replied, "Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, while Lazarus received bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. And besides all this, between us and you a great chasm has been set in place, so that those who want to go from here to you cannot, nor can anyone cross over from there to us." He answered, "Then I beg you, Father, send Lazarus to my family, for I have 5 brothers. Let him warn them, so that they will not also come to this place of torment." Abraham replied, "They have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them." "No, Father Abraham," he said, "but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will repent." He said to him, "If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced even if someone rises from the dead." We could spend a lot of time reflecting on this story, but for today, I really just want to point out one thing. The rich man, at least as far as the gospel story tells us, was not a bad or evil or cruel man. He didn't kick Lazarus every time he walked past him. He didn't set the dogs onto him. He didn't call the police to come and arrest him for loitering and begging. The rich man wasn't bad or evil or cruel. He was just insensitive. He was blind to the fact that someone he went past every day was suffering, and he was blind too to the fact that he, the rich man, if he wanted to, could easily have done something about it. But he didn't. He didn't have the eyes, and he didn't have the ears, and he didn't have the heart that I was talking about a little bit earlier. He wasn't able to see the need that was actually staring him in the face, and much less was he willing to do anything about it. He might have been a rich and successful man, but in the ways that really count, he was anything but a hero. I suspect that many of us know people like this rich man. It may even be that there is just a little bit of the rich man in us as well. It might be worth our while to reflect for a moment on whether or not there might be a whole lot of Lazaruses that we pass by each day without really noticing it. Maybe on our way to and from school, or on our way to the footy, or when we go into the city on the weekends. It might even be that there are some Lazaruses, some lonely or neglected or silently suffering people at school, or next door, or down the street from us. Do we even know? Have we got eyes that see these people, or ears that hear them calling for help, or hearts that ache a little when we do see and hear them? All of this leads me to a second piece of advice that Mary MacKillop used to give that first group of young women, that first group of sisters. It's not as famous, it's not as well known as the first one, but it is at least as important and maybe even more so. And this is the advice she used to also give her sisters. Remember who you are trying to follow. Remember who you are trying to follow. It seems to me that Mary could only give her sisters the first piece of advice, never see a need without doing something about it, because she knew that while on their own they would never be able to live up to that piece of advice, they would be able to if they kept their eyes on the person they were following, Jesus. And why is that so important? I think it's because in following Jesus, Mary and her sisters, and in fact every Christian, was not and is not simply following a man who died 2,000 years ago and who left us a great example to imitate. Just having an example to imitate on its own is never going to be enough. Mary and her sisters, and every Christian, and hopefully that includes most, if not all of us, are following someone who we know is alive today, who certainly does call each and every one of us to great things, to be heroes, but who also promises to be with us, to help us, to strengthen us, to pick us up when we fall over, when we get things wrong, and who says to us, as he so often said during his lifetime to his disciples, "Do not be afraid. I am with you. Have courage." A big number of us here this morning are Catholics. We've been baptised and confirmed. And many years ago, we would have made our first communion. In all of these ways, Jesus has been stepping into our lives, uniting us with him, lending us his strength, his spirit, so that we can all realise the potential we have and become the people that God has created us to be. There is, I think, a very real sense in which over all of these years, he has been gradually forming in us eyes that can see the needs of others, ears that can hear their cries for help, and hearts that do ache and want to reach out and do what we can to make people's lives better. But that's not true just for the majority of us who are Catholics. There are people here who aren't Catholics, who don't go to Holy Communion when you go to Mass, but that doesn't mean that God still isn't very much working in your lives, if you let him, to shape you into the people he has created you to be. One of the basic things we believe as Christians is that Jesus wants to be a brother to every human person. We believe that his Spirit is at work in the Catholic Church, but not confined to the Catholic Church. No one is excluded from God's love. Everyone has a place in God's heart. So what I wanted to say to you this morning is that you do already have the eyes you need, but you may have to take off the blinkers that are limiting your vision. You do already have the ears that you need, but you just might have to disconnect your iPhones from time to time and take off your headphones occasionally so that you can hear what is going on around you. You do already have the hearts that you need, but you might have to make a bit of an effort to get in touch with what lies deepest in your hearts. Not just the surface stuff, but what lies deepest. One of the reasons we hold this annual forum each year is that it gives me a chance to speak to the young leaders of our schools and ask you to be at the centre of your school's engagement with Lifelink. To be the people who help the rest of the school community discover that they already have those eyes and those ears and those hearts. Over the years, different schools have done different things to raise awareness of the needs of so many people in our society and to raise money to help the church agencies we heard about a little earlier respond to these needs. I have to be honest and admit that I'm not particularly creative myself, so I'm probably not the one to come up with innovative and original suggestions as to how you can go about both tasks, raising awareness and raising money. After the break, we'll have a Q&A, and we've got two very creative people here, Dr. Simons and Bishop Sproxton, who might have some great ideas, so feel free to ask them. Nothing like putting people on the spot. Lifelink is about raising money, but it's also about raising awareness. Lifelink in your school is about raising money, but it's also about raising awareness. There are too many people who, like the rich man in Jesus' parable, just don't see the suffering, the loneliness, the desperation, and the hopelessness which have taken hold of the lives of so many people, including so many young people. What I'm hoping is that you can go back to your schools today with a real sense of enthusiasm, of energy, of determination, and maybe even of urgency, ready to do whatever you can, together with all those other people you can gather around you, to really fire up the whole school community so that no one can say that your school is a place full of people like the rich man in today's story. Instead, what I'm hoping is that people will say of your school community, there's a school that doesn't just talk about social justice or care for the poor or sticking up for the underdog. There's a school which is full of people who are ready to roll up their sleeves, get their hands dirty, and make a difference. I think a famous poem of Saint Teresa of Avila, another great hero in the Christian story, a poem that she wrote expresses all of this really well. Many of you will be aware of it, but you might like to use it as a reflection when you gather people around you to get Lifelink going in your own school community. So let me read it for you and just think about what it's trying to say. Christ has no body but yours, no hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes through which his compassion looks out upon the world. Yours are the feet with which he walks to do good. Yours are the hands with which he blesses all the world. Today, in the spirit of this very beautiful poem of St. Teresa, I really want to ask you to make use of all you have and all you are, and in a sense, all that deep down you most want to be, to play your part in this year's Lifelink effort. I've got a few other more practical points to make, but just wanted to finish there the official address and to say thank you for your attention and for listening. Before I do close, as some of you would be aware, it is traditional during this launch each year that I announce which school or schools will receive the Archbishop's Spirit Award for the previous year's Lifelink Day. It's important to remember that this award is not based on how much money is raised through fundraising. So it's not called the Economic Award or anything like that. It's called the Spirit Award. It's about the spirit that operates in the school. So it's presented to the school which comprehensively demonstrates active support for the Lifelink Day initiative, which embraces the goals of Lifelink, that is, to not only learn about the Church's response to people in need within our Archdiocese, but to also undertake some form of fundraising in support of the social service agencies funded through Lifelink. A school which commits to educating students on their responsibility to care for those less fortunate in our community, and a school which promotes an ethos of caring and compassion for students, for teachers, for parents, and for the wider community. We all have a responsibility to show love and compassion to all of these groups, not just on Lifelink Day, but every day. On the screen now, you'll see the list of schools which have received my Spirit Award since it was last presented in 1999. I'm not going to read them all out, and they move relatively slowly, I think, so you can have a read of them as I'm talking. The truth is that each and every school is deserving of receiving this award because all of our schools demonstrate enthusiastic and generous support for Lifelink Day. However, in presenting the Spirit Award each year, Bishop Don and I try to acknowledge those who, as far as we can tell, have made an extra effort, been especially creative, or gone that extra mile to help people in need. We say it every year, because it's true every year, that the task is always a difficult one. It's not an easy decision. So before I announce the winner, I want to make special mention of 6 schools which, as far as Bishop Don and I could tell, really did embrace the educational aspects of Lifelink Day and organised innovative and enjoyable fundraising events. I'll read them all through, the 6 of them. We might hold our applause till I've read through the 6 names. So my thanks to all of those people at Seton Catholic College in Samson, at John the 23rd College in Mount Claremont, at Emmanuel Catholic College down there in Success, at Padbury Catholic Primary School in Padbury, at Magella Catholic Primary School in Balga, and at Loreto Primary School in Nedlands. But I am delighted to announce that Bishop Don and I have once again selected not one, but 2 schools, one a primary school and one a secondary school, as joint winners of the Archbishop's Award for 2016. So just to keep the tension going, I'll announce the primary school winner first. That's St Helena's Catholic Primary School in Allenbrook. I think there are some people from Holy Cross here, so your younger brothers and sisters have taken out the award this year. Well done. And the winner of the Archbishop's Spirit Award for 2016 is Mercy College in Kundula. So congratulations, well done. They're up here in the front looking pretty pleased with themselves, so congratulations, that's terrific. Bishop Sproxton, Bishop Don and I have asked all of you to enthusiastically support our Lifelink Day initiative. We're hoping to raise a minimum of $130,000 for people in need in our community. So I'm really very delighted to officially launch Lifelink Day 2017 and to finish this part of the morning just by asking the Lord to bless us all and to be with us as we all try to develop those eyes and those ears and those hearts, without which we won't be able to be the people that God is calling us to be. So may Almighty God bless all of you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. I now want to invite Dr. Ed Simons, who is the Director of Governance and Administrative Services at Catholic Education Western Australia. Dr. Simons is representing Dr. McDonald. So I invite Dr. Ed Simons to come now to the microphone.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much, Archbishop and Bishop Don. It's my pleasure to be with you here this morning, and as the Archbishop has just mentioned, representing our Executive Director, Dr. Tim McDonald, who's currently over in Sydney. And may I begin by acknowledging the land on which we're gathering, its traditional owners, the Noongar Whadjuk people, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and future elders, many of which are in our Catholic schools and colleges on this very day. And seeing so many of you here today to support the launch of this year's LifeLink campaign is wonderful. And I want to thank you for joining together, and especially thank those people who are still working away, making sure that the sizable logistics of an event like this are actually possible. So thank you to those people who have pulled such an important and sizable event together. Notable occasions such as today help to reaffirm my sense of pride to be a part of our system of 163 Catholic schools and colleges right across the state, and a system that I think we would agree is full of generosity and sense of care and support for others. And many congratulations to Mercy College on the announcement today. Thank you, Archbishop Costello and Bishop Don, for sharing your insightful words and for challenging those of us here today this morning, both staff and students, to roll up our sleeves and lead our school communities as we live out the gospel. The LifeLink campaign launch provides us with a powerful call to action, which demands both our personal and collective responsibility and accountability. And as students and staff within Catholic schools, we are now tasked with taking up this important challenge. And one way which we can frame this task is through the Catholic education strategy of LEAD. And this has 4 focus areas which stand for learning, engagement, accountability, and discipleship. And it perhaps goes without saying that supporting LifeLink, as we've already heard clearly this morning, is a clear example of discipleship, both at an individual level and at our collective school level. Yet, I believe that the support for LifeLink encompasses the whole acronym of LEAD. Efforts aligned to support LifeLink awaken the fact that the learning that takes place in Catholic schools and colleges is not simply about pursuing intellectual, creative, sporting, or social opportunities. Instead, it has learning and understanding about serving God and serving others at its core. Indeed, learning about both the cause of disadvantage and the ways in which we can collectively respond to it is fundamental to the ongoing success of both LifeLink and Catholic schools. In the LEAD acronym, E stands for engagement, and we're all called today to truly engage with the reality of inequality experienced by our neighbours and engage our friends and our families in meaningful dialogue about the need for social action. And A in LEAD stands for accountability. Being accountable with the resources that we have, the precious time that we have, and our responsibility to act for the good of those who need our help and assistance the most. I hope that today we can each learn something new about the important work of the LifeLink agencies, and I already have, and allow ourselves to be inspired to support their efforts to serve the disadvantaged and marginalized within our society. I know that all our schools have the creativity, the compassion, and the skills needed to make meaningful contribution to the work of LifeLink agencies through the activities, fundraising, and awareness that we have heard of already. And I believe collectively we should be proud of how Catholic schools and colleges have supported LifeLink in recent years. And I am now excited to see how we will continue to do so throughout this year and into the future. So good luck and thank you.